Hey everyone, it's John here, and today I'm going to be doing my post-World Junior mock draft for the 2020 NHL entry draft. So I'm going to start with some fun here. I'm actually going to do a mock lottery result to see who will have the top 3 picks, the top 10 picks, and see how that affects my top 10 ranking for the 2020 draft in June. So let's take a look at this draft lottery simulator and see who will get the top 3 picks. So let's sim the lottery. Wow, so Ottawa gets the first overall pick from the Sharks pick. And that's kind of insane. I mean, again, I didn't plan that, so it's kind of funny that happened because that pick could determine if this is a good trade or not for the Sharks. And it is already looking like a rough trade in terms of the contract that Carlson got and the trade and the Sens, kind of all the hate and backlash they got for the lack of return, but that first round pick could be a make or break for how good of a return the Sens get. And if it gets to be a first overall pick, because they did assume that the Sharks would be a playoff contender, that would be insane. We're talking about ALEXIS, LAFRENIERE, QUINTON, BYFIELD. Again, we'll wait to see who I get for the first overall pick. But the Sharks lose out. The Sens will get the first overall pick. The Red Wings, the second overall pick, so they drop one. And the Canadiens jump up 5 spots, which is crazy. So we'll see what happens. Ottawa, Detroit, Montreal, and then it goes down the list. Devils, Ottawa, LA, Anaheim, Chicago, Rangers, and Buffalo for the top 10. So let's get into my top 10 picks, and we know how it can go. A lot can change from now until the draft. But at this very moment, at number 10, I have HENDRIX, LAPIERRE. This is a guy in the QMJHL. He has struggled with injuries over the last year and a half. He's just averaging under a point per game, and he's a center. And there's a lot of centers in this top 10, and he is under 6 foot, and he's not overly flashy or overly skilled, but he plays the game at that 200 foot. He plays that game well. He creates space for his teammates. He's very efficient on the ice. He makes those small plays to make it easier for the team. And I think a guy like that who does put up production, and again, I think he struggled with injuries, and that kind of affects the rhythm and what he might be able to accomplish. I think a guy like Lapierre could crack the top 10. And again, after this, I'm going to talk about some guys that fell out of the top 10 that still might be there closer to the draft. Again, things do change. I'm going more off of the post-World Junior results and what we've seen in the last couple months. Now at number 9, Marco Rossi from the Ottawa 67s. He's leading the OHL in points right now, 69 points in 29 games. He is lighting the league up. And I kind of lay one example, Alex DeBrincat. This is different, obviously, because Marco Rossi, I think, is projected to be a top 15 pick at the very least. I have him at number 9. I think, yes, he's maybe a little undersized. He does lack maybe some of the strength, but he's very crafty. He plays the game in smart ways. Yes, he doesn't have that size. He doesn't have that physical ability, but he plays along the boards well. He's always in the right spot. I mean, he's putting up this production. He has to be doing something right. He has to be in those spots at all times. He creates space for him off the puck. That's a big thing, especially in junior, finding ways to create space for yourself off the puck and to translate that obviously into the NHL. I think Marco Rossi is a top 10 pick. I have him at number 9. And again, you can't overthink it. If a guy is leading the OHL in scoring, he's obviously going to somewhat translate that into a higher level. And I think in the top 10 spot, I have him at number 9, Marco Rossi from the Ottawa 67s. So my 10th and 9th pick, both centermen. Cole Perfetti, who can also play center, also wing. I have him at number 8. I think we've seen a lot of creativity in the past in shootouts and World Juniors, whether it was Troy Terry or back Jonathan Taves, TJ Oshie. This is Cole Perfetti. He's got that creativity in the shootout. He's got that creativity in the way he plays the game. He's arguably probably in the top 10 going to be one of the better goal scorers selected. And I think if you're looking at maybe a comparable, not so much in terms of the way they play, but maybe in terms of their scoring ability and maybe skating being kind of, in terms of speeds especially, maybe being a setback, it'd be Cole Caulfield. Again, different players for sure, and they're not comparable in terms of style of play, but in terms of strengths and weaknesses, they're very comparable. In terms of where they could get selected in the draft, I think Cole Perfetti right now for me could go as high as maybe 5 or 6, but then he could also fall. Because of the situation where I think a lot of scouts and some management think that he might not fit for a center role. And Cole Caulfield obviously is a natural winger, but for Perfetti, if he gets slid to the wing, and a lot of teams in this top 10 prefer centermen, prefer maybe a couple defensemen, because again, in this top 10, there's not a whole lot of defensemen that could get selected. And maybe you see it like last year, that maybe a couple squeeze in because teams are in need of a defenseman. I've always said that I think you should draft the most skilled guy on the board, especially in hockey. And I think in this case, if Cole Perfetti is on the board at 8, 9, or 10, you've got to select him. But I think for some teams, they might pass up on him for a positional need, and I think that might be a mistake. I have Cole Perfetti at 8. I think he could go higher, and I think he's going to be one of the more skilled and better goal scorers in this top 10. At number 7, Tim Stützle. You know what? We saw him in the World Juniors for Germany, 5 points in 5 games, but for me, he just really didn't stand out. And I think that does obviously have an effect on the situation in terms of the team not doing well and obviously being close to being relegated. I think Tim Stützle still had a decent tournament. I would have him in the top 10. Again, this one's a tougher pick for me because I think the ceiling is high. I really do think the ceiling and the skill set can really grow here. I think he's getting that maturity overseas, and I think it might take some time to translate into the North American game, but I think this is the guy that has a higher ceiling, potentially. So I really like Tim Stützle. I think he's very dynamic. I think he's got that skill set, and I have him at number 7. Again, I could see him being another situation where he falls because of the uncertainties, but I do believe that this skill set is there for Tim Stützle, and I have him at number 7. At number 6, Anton Lundell, 6'1", huge Finnish centerman. He plays a strong two-way game. I think this concern for Lundell, I have him at 6. You guys like Marco Rossi and Cole Perfetti could slide up because they have that skill. They have that raw skill. And for a guy like Anton Lundell, a lot of high-end scouts don't know if he has that high-end skill or if he has that raw skill to develop. And I'm not saying he's without skill, and I don't think that's what scouts are saying either. But obviously when you're a top 10 pick, you want a guy that is explosive in the offensive zone, or a guy that you know can push to be that two-way centerman that puts those numbers offensively. Because when you're going to draft a guy top 10, it's not necessarily going to be that second or third line guy. You want to push for it to be that top line sniper or that top line two-way center or the guy that's going to lead you in points. So that's kind of the concern for Anton Lundell. Is he just going to be an average second line player, a bigger guy, plays the game right, two-way game, or can he produce more, can he develop more, and become maybe like an Anze Kopitar comparable? So that's obviously up for question. Again, I think there is a lot of question marks around Anton Lundell. I think there is a lot of question marks in this draft. I think when you look at the top 4, top 5, there's certainties, and then second half of that top 10, there's even more question marks. And I think even now, especially with the World Juniors, and I'll say one, Askarov for Russia, I think that's a big question mark now because we were thinking, oh, is this the guy that's going to be the next like Vasilevsky, or is he going to be the next guy that's Carey Price? Now there's question marks because he got booted out of the starting role for Russia, and obviously for a guy that didn't play well on the World Juniors, yes, you don't want to read too much into it. Is he going to be a top 10 pick anymore? So now there's even more question marks, I feel like, after the World Juniors. And I think that's why I've kind of changed a little bit of my rankings from what I thought before. So now we're going to move to top 5. And at number 5, I have Jamie Drysdale. You know what? He was the 7th defenseman listed from the start of the tournament for Canada. Right shot defenseman. I think the creativity is there. His skating is obviously his number 1 attribute. He is so solid in terms of his skating. He's so smooth, so quick. On his one goal, I mean, dragging the puck across the blue line, making a cut through the middle, and the shot, he made it look so easy over the pad, the left side. I'm really excited for Jamie Drysdale in this draft. I think he could crack the top 5. And again, if you're looking at the top 10, specifically the top 5, there's no defenseman there. Jamie Drysdale could be the number 1 drafted defenseman in this 2020 NHL entry draft. And I think Jamie Drysdale could go as high as like maybe 4 or 5. Again, maybe that is a reach, but I really like his skill set. I think he's got it. I really do think, and the right shot defenseman, obviously a lot of people see that as extra value, but I do think with that skating ability, and he's not a slob on the defensive zone. He can make plays, and I think that is the big problem with offensive defensemen these days. They have the lack of defensive responsibility, and from what I saw, Jamie Drysdale, he was physical in that tournament, and he did make plays, and that's why I kind of now, There was question marks if he was going to go 7, 8, 9, 10. He was going to be a borderline top 10 pick. Now I think he could be closer to the top 5. So I have him at number 5. Maybe that is a little bit of a hot take, but I am confident in his abilities, and I really liked what I saw from his tournament, and especially when he got that opportunity in the top 4 when Bowen Byram was ill. And I think just on paper, when we talked about Cole Perfetti or Marco Rossi putting up those numbers, Jamie Drysdale for the Erie Otters, they don't have a lot of offensive power, and they're closer to the bottom of the league, and Jamie Drysdale averaging over a point per game. This is the guy that's putting up the numbers while playing a two-way game, while being an unbelievable skater, while being a surprise to making Team Canada. This guy is overcoming obstacles. He's surprising a lot of people, and that's why I bump him up to top 5 at that 5 spot. And number 4, I think it's going to be Alexander HOLTZ. HOLTZ is a shooter, and we saw it in the tournament. He didn't look like he was lights out, 5 points through 7 games, but he had a very solid tournament. He was one of the better players, or at least forwards, for Sweden. And I think if we talked about HOLTZ and we talked about Raymond, these two guys, I mean, in the tournament, they complemented each other when they got time together, maybe on the power play. These two guys can score. They've got that skating ability. They're very, very crafty with their hands. It's going to be funny because if Raymond and HOLTZ do go back-to-back in the draft, it's going to be interesting because at the end of the day, depending on, yes, in my lottery that I just did, Ottawa gets the first overall pick, and then they slide down out of the top 3 on that second pick, obviously. But if you look at Raymond and HOLTZ, if the Sens were to get 2 picks in around maybe 4 or 5 or 3 or 4, and they were able to draft HOLTZ and Raymond, that could be a really good combination to come out of the draft with, not only because of their individual skill, but because of their chemistry together. So that's also a point to make. So as I kind of already made a clue to it, Raymond, number 3, kind of the same attributes. I think he's more elusive. I think he has better cuts. I think he has better skating ability. I really liked what I saw. Not that it was a great thing that Hoglander went out for the rest of the game when he made that controversial hit, but we saw extra work from Raymond. He scored an unbelievable goal, and I think one of the younger guys, he has that maturity already. I think he's only going to grow as a player, as an individual, and I really like the raw skill set from Raymond, and that's why I have him 1 spot ahead of HOLTZ. And number 2, Quinton Byfield. I'm going to say right now, number 1 is ALEXIS Lafreniere, and it's not even close. It shouldn't be close, and I don't know why for people it was ever close. And I'm not just saying this because it's after the World Juniors. This should just make it a lot more clear. Before the World Juniors, I don't even know how it was close. Quinton Byfield, yes, a 6'4 centerman. He does a lot of things right. He's gross with the hands. He's got a shot. He plays that two-way game. But ALEXIS Lafreniere makes plays like Connor McDavid. No, he's not going to be a Connor McDavid. He's not a centerman. He's not going to do everything that Connor McDavid does. But some of the things he does reminds me of Connor McDavid. Whether that backhand goal on the break from that pass on Nolan Foote, he makes it so easy, just with the wrists, the hands, the speed. When you see a guy that has the combination of insane puck handling with that elusive and full speed skating, it can't be stopped. And that's Connor McDavid. Some players, you'll see the dump in, and then they're fast to get to the puck. Connor McDavid, the way he moves with the puck is obviously 1 in a million. And I think for a guy like ALEXIS Lafreniere, no, he's not that, and he is a winger. But he dominated in the tournament. He was the tournament's MVP. He got hurt. He came back. He absolutely dominated. And I think just his overall game, he's number 1. And it's not even close for me. There shouldn't even be a debate. And when people make these debates out of these drafts, I think it's just pointless. Like Matthews over Laine or McDavid over Eichel. Those weren't debates for me, and they were never debates ever. And it's the same thing for here. Lafreniere to Byfield. And I think there's probably a bigger gap than the other two I just said. 100%. Yes, Byfield again, 6'4". I think whoever gets him is definitely getting an elite centerman for the future. And I don't think just because he struggled in the World Juniors and got sent down to the 4th line means that he's going to be a bad player. That's not it at all. I have him at number 2 still because I do believe that he just wasn't given a good opportunity. He had 2 guys ahead of him that already had pro experience in Barrett Hayton and Joe Veleno. He was put in a rough situation where for the left side, ALEXIS Lafreniere was slotted right there at the top, and he didn't move from there. He just succeeded right off the bat, where Quinton Byfield just really didn't have that opportunity in a top 6 role. He never really came out on his own, as ALEXIS Lafreniere did in the World Juniors. So I really think he's going to come back into junior, keep lighting it up. And again, maybe he moves out of that second spot, but he's not going to move out of the top 5. I don't think he would move out of the top 3 at all. So if someone maybe steps up, I don't know if that would be Raymond. I don't know if that would be HOLTZ. Again, I think Raymond might have more of the raw skill. I could see that guy really panning out and maybe even stepping up as the year goes by. I don't really know what we'll see from Jamie Drysdale and Erie. Again, from what we saw in the times that we saw him quite a bit, Jamie Drysdale really impressed me, so we'll see what he does for the rest of the year with the Otters. Again, he's already averaging over a point per game as a defenseman, a right shot defenseman, their number 1 defenseman, so we'll see what he can do. But at number 1, I have Alexis Lafreniere. Number 2, Quinton Byfield. Number 3, Lucas Raymond. That's how I see the top 3 going. Let me know how you see the draft going. A lot can change, but as I make this video, the day after the World Juniors has ended and Canada beat Russia in the gold medal game, I do have a guy like Jamie Drysdale stepping up in the rankings, and I do have a couple other players dropping out, including Askarov. There's going to be question marks around his abilities, and he might drop to maybe where Spencer Knight got selected, so maybe in around middle of the first round. So we'll see what happens. Thank you for watching. Again, subscribe if you're new. Smash that like button. Comment your thoughts. This is John from Hockey. Have a good one. Peace out.